Oscar 15, any technology tool meets accessibility standards. So that means anything you use must be WCAG 2.1 AA certified, or it cannot be used. And so what we find is when we're really talking about how does this apply, we're talking about these practices. So basically everything needs to adhere to OSCQR accessibility standards that we've already done in level 2. All PDF files must be tagged so that a screen reader can walk through them. All CCRI supported technologies here are already WCAG 2.1 AA rated, except for media lecture. So everything we already have that IT supports is already the WCAG 2.1 AA rated, except for media lecture. So if you're using media lecture, that means you must supply a transcript with each one of these videos. Now there's AI out there that you can now give the URL for your video and it will give you a transcript. So Otter AI is one of them. You can use that. So you just, click on the video, let it play, and Otter will make a transcript for you. Or, I always recommend scripting first, making that script into a transcript. Much, much easier. The other thing is your textbook and publisher must be WCAG compatible right here. And then any additional software that you're using needs to be AA rated. So when you talk to the vendor, you can say, are you WCAG 2.1 AA rated? And they'll know what that is. And they'll be able to say yes or no. And if they say no, they're going to offer you something called a VPAT. And a VPAT is the voluntary template accessibility for products. And that's from the government. So it's part of the ADA compliancy law. So they can basically fill out this piece of paper called a VPAT, and they can send it to you. This VPAT will say exactly what they can and can't do with the 2.1 AA rating. And if you peruse our websites on the faculty side, you'll actually see those VPATs downloadable on each of those pages for students. If they are not accessible and you want to meet OSCQR standards for your course, then you need to change your publisher for that, or work with them for alternatives. And so one of the alternative is to have a tagged PDF file, which the student can download to their desktop, which is the publisher, which is the whole textbook. But that doesn't help you when there is a platform. So most of the platforms like Macmillan and McGraw-Hill and MyLab, Pearson, Cengage, they are already AA rated. Sometimes you got to be careful with the health or dental publishers, but most of the general publishers are already AA certified. So the next one is OSCQR 19. This one is self-explanatory. Instructions are provided, well written, and specifically what they're talking about when you write instructions, you're talking about what, where, how, why, when, and everything that goes with it. And we have a workshop called Transparency in Course Design that specifically teaches effective practice that targets instruction writing and has a practice that has found it is research-based and has positive impact on students who are disabled, students of color, students are first generation, students who may not be English language, first language speakers. So the first one is OSCQR 27, which talks about predefined slide layouts and include unique titles. So when you use PowerPoint, when you first add or open up a new PowerPoint, the first slide is there. And often it has a box on it. It says title. So every single slide that you have will have this title box. That is an HTML tagged item, which means when a screen reader goes through your PowerPoint, it can see the title so that students can navigate slide by slide. So if you're missing a title, a student with a screen reader may have to listen to the whole slide before they can skip to the next one because the title is missing. So they navigate, screen readers navigate by this title bar. So people can quickly locate the information they were looking at. It's fine when they go through it the first because they're going slide by slide, but if they want to go back and they're looking for something specific, they can't get there. They got to listen to everything. And it can be quite tedious at times. So you want to use those predefined slide layouts from PowerPoint, and I'm going to show you all about them in the demo a little bit later. It's a little bit complicated. You also want to use the predefined slide boxes. So some of the slides you can choose have boxes. You can put one big box, two big box, three big box, and then you can put things in them. Those are also HTML coded to be headings. So heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, so that the screen reader can understand how it moves through the slide in order of importance. And so by using these boxes, you can help the screen reader keep the correct order as it moves through. So there is a master slide that I'm going to show you where you can change your headings and layout styles to be what you like visually, but the screen reader will still function properly. When we get into trouble with accessibility is when we start changing the size of fonts, when we're changing the color or the shape or the boldness, then it starts to get out of sync with the HTML that's actually coded behind the slide. One of the practices you can do that it's called collaborative note taking, which is fantastic, is when you give the PowerPoint slides to students, think about giving them as a handout. You can actually create a handout from your PowerPoint slides and add your notes, add annotations. And this is shown to really help students improve the understanding of the content. So think about that. And then every slide needs to have a unique title, again, that goes to the screen reader and how it's going to move through the screen. If you have two of the same titles, the screen reader doesn't actually know what's on what slide. So they're going to have to go through both slides to figure out which is the one they're looking for. So giving it a unique title is exactly what we want to do to help those screen readers. So here's some other details that you might not know about PowerPoint. You want to make sure the slide contents can be read in the order that you intended. So the tab button in both Windows and Word and Mac and online in the 365, you can tab through the objects on your PowerPoint, starting with the title, and that will tell you how a screen reader will go through it. So as you add objects to the screen, as things start to move out of order, you can actually change the tab order in your PowerPoint slide to match what you want it to be. If you use tables in the PowerPoint, those same table rules, those standards apply in that information. So you make sure the table has a header row, each column has a title on top, and that way people can navigate through it. So it used to be 28 point was where you wanted to be, but our projectors have gotten so well and so good, and most people are using the digital screen, that actually 8 point is where you need to be now for people to normalize reading. 18 point is what you want to use on these slides. I think I'm using 20, a little bit bigger here, on your slides to be very clear. Anything smaller than 18 starts to get a little bit difficult to read. Let's talk about where you check the accessibility in your PowerPoints. So in your PowerPoint, whether it is online or it is a PowerPoint on your desktop, on the review tab, you will see a button called Check Accessibility. Just click it and it will automatically run a report which will show you the results of what is going on in that slide. And this tells me everything I need to fix in order to make sure that this is accessible to someone who's using a screen reader so that they can work through that slide in the right order. And you can see most of these are going to be alt text, which we're going to talk about, which means all my pictures just either need to be checked as decorative or I need to add an alt text. There's a couple here. I had a slide, the same title. So it says, hey, remember, you have to have a unique slide title. So make sure you change that. OSCQR 28, it states that do not transition between slides. So there's something called transitions. Yeah, probably everybody's used them. They're fade or turns or fly-ins or box turn or wipe or bounce. So those are those slide transitions sometimes you see in a PowerPoint slide where things start to move in automatically, bounce on the screen or wipe in, wipe out. Don't use any of those. For our students who have low vision, the transitions are really difficult to follow. So if you're having things bounce in on the slide, they're busy listening to you, and now they're trying to track what actual physical changes are going on the screen. So you want to avoid using transitions. OSCQR text equivalent for every non-text element is provided. Sometimes it's called an alt text, and sometimes you'll hear alt tag. It's just a fancy to say you need to have a description with every single picture. So in order to get to the alt text in PowerPoint, so as you can see here, I have all these alt texts are missing. Picture 4, 3, group 3, picture 4, group 12, picture. All of these need descriptions. And so the way I get to that is I right click on the picture, the image in PowerPoint, and this little menu comes up and it says view alt text. So I click that, and then we have our alt text button come up. So here I have this picture here. I have made a little description about what it is. Now, if it's just decorative, meaning there's nothing in it that really is important, it might be just some fancy little picture to beef up the visual aspect of your PowerPoint, you just mark it as decorative. If someone who is using a screen reader really doesn't need to know that you put a blue box on the upper right hand corner or a picture of a smiling person, right? So only those images that are important, they should have a description. When it comes to charts, I recommend putting a little bit of the description in the alt text. However, I would put a full paragraph underneath the chart that describes exactly what you're seeing in the chart, sort of like you were doing a journal article, right? You show the chart and then you have to tell the paragraph that says exactly what is in the chart. Same thing for table. Put a little bit into your alt text, but then really rely on a paragraph underneath the table that talks about what the table describes. Sometimes the header, like the title of the table, will help you. If you say yards of waste versus time or overtime or year 2023 sales, and you can describe what's going on in the table. For images that are for science, so this gets a little tricky. Again, I recommend the paragraph underneath the slide. However, that gets a little tricky, especially if you're making the image really big because you want the students to see something on it. So make sure that you make your paragraph in the alt text so that someone with a screen reader can go through, read the actual paragraph and understand what's going on. And you may end up trying to provide an alternative. In that case, when you have something that is just really sort of odd, that you need an image that you need to sort of put a description with, put a general placeholder in there. Like, so if you had something about biology cells with a bacteria that's growing, like put in bacteria in there And then if you get a student with accommodation, then you can have a conversation with them that describes what's going on in detail. Sometimes there's just not enough words to describe what's going on in a science image. And in those rare cases, make sure you make an office appointment with them and you reserve some time to walk them through. OSCQR 36. Text, graphics, images are understandable when viewed without color. Text should be used as a primary method for delivering information. So what's the number one rule, OSCQR? No text with color. All text should be either black or white. No colored text, because that triggers contrast. It triggers people who are using screen readers. That triggers people with low vision. So it triggers students who have dyslexia. So there's a whole gambit of people who cannot read text with color. So that's the first thing, right? Slide contrast. So here is the directions here. If you have a Windows machine and you have PowerPoint in your Windows, once you're done building your PowerPoint, one of the easy ways to check is you go to your start button, settings, accessibility, and you can turn your color filters to grayscale. And then you go back and look at your PowerPoint and see what you can and cannot see and see what's difficult to see. And that will give you a great idea of how someone who's colorblind or has contrast issues, it's a great way. Unfortunately, on a Mac, we do not have color filters. We can't just turn to grayscale. You can also do the contrast checker on WebAIM. So WebAIM.org is a giant site for accessibility, the WCAG 2.1 AA, so WCAG 2.1. They not only give you things to check accessibility, but they walk you through example after example after example of what works and what doesn't work, what works for text, what works for pictures. And here I'm just giving you an example. I'm using a white text on our famous CCRI green, and you can see the contrast is 6.2.1. Our threshold is greater than 4.5 to 1, so this is perfect. So if you are really into having sort of colors and you want to use this green background or white background with this green, it works perfectly. Our other branding colors do not work. They do not make the contrast check. So only our green with white, white and green. OSCQR 37. Now we move on to hyperlinks. We have hyperlinks everywhere. This is outside of PowerPoint too. So it's hyperlink is descriptive, and avoid using select this, click here, all that kind of nonsense. So people who are using a screen reader need to know exactly what the link is and where it's going. You want to be really descriptive in your links. Links need to be able to have proper nouns and action verbs so that people understand what you're doing. You want to be concise and short as possible. So here we are in our PowerPoint. And I want to run the review from review tab and then check accessibility. It's going to give me all the errors that I'm missing. So you can see here, it wants me to check the reading order in slide 14, 16, and 18, probably because I put arrows on them. Duplicate side title, and it's going to tell me on slide 8 is duplicates. And then, of course, I'm missing all of my alt text for this error. So you can expand this list and click on it, and it's going to bring you right to the area where it is a problem, right? So this is probably this big text here, which is just a background picture. I'm going to choose view alt text, and I'm going to mark it because someone who is a screen reader doesn't need to know anything about what's going on in this background picture. This is a little link here, and I'm going to put in online learning and technology, and that's going to be my alt tag. And then this is the heading, right? This is the title of the slide here, so I don't have to do anything about that. And then when I go back, you will see that the slide, the picture 4 is now gone. So you can click right through these, and what it's telling me is the ADA compliance, right? Right click, view alt text, ADA logo. Done. Back to accessibility, and then it's gone. Slide 4, it's telling me this bar. I'm going to right click, view alt text. It's decorative, right? It's fancy. And now that's good. So then I can go right through all of these things. Check reading order. It's going to ask me in 14, because if I go, right, so the way I move, let me move that. So the way I move through this slide is by the tab buttons. It goes to that first picture, tab, it goes to the second, but actually I wanted to go to the little arrow and then to the view alt text, right? So that's what's happening, is it's asking me, do you want these little arrows to be part of that reading order? And so what I need to do is, once I go in and I mark these with alt text, and I can say view of accessibility inspection results, right? That's done. Alt text, view of alt text screen. And that's done. It's going to ask me description. I'm going to mark it as decorative, not necessary, decorative, my little arrow, decorative, my little box. That's right on there. Oh, I can't get to, oh, I must have put that on the, there it is, decorative. And so now that reading order is gone, because if I start here, let me get rid of that. If I start here and I tab through, it goes here. Oops, sorry. I have to be on the actual, there you go. Tab, tab. And that's all a screen person needs. They don't need to be on all of this stuff, right? But I can go back in to the view alt text and actually put view inspections results. And I could put from the menu, from the accessibility, or I could put, actually for this one I have to do right click on the image, the menu will appear, choose view alt text. This will bring you to the alt text window, right? So that is a great way to give a description step by step of what's going on here in that. I don't need to include any of these elements outside in the screen reader, right? They don't need to go through each box, and because they can't tell what the box is attached to or what it's pointing to. All I need is these two things: view of alt screen with a description of the image in the description box. Mark as decorative if there is no important info in the box, in the image. Sorry. There you go, right? So now that is done. So the accessibility of this slide is all set.